Hi, folks. This is Anthony. Here I am. I just want to do a sound check and video check. If for those of you that are actually already in the room, if you can let me know by chatting it in there, if you can see and hear me, that would be fantastic. Can it? No. Great. Christy, thank you so much. Can you see me as well? Or what is of me? Perfect. Oh, thank you, Megan. Great. Wonderful. All right, Jake, thank you. Is this the Jake that I know, Jake? All right, we'll get started soon. So great, thanks, Christy. I'm going to save you from my view. So now I took myself off video, so you can't see me now, but hopefully you can still hear me. We're gonna let we have a bunch of people coming tonight. We're gonna let them come in the room. So just make yourself comfortable, and we'll get started right at around 6 o'clock, 6:01. Great. Ryan's mom, Sahar, great to have you. Folks, I'm going to give it one more minute and We got, I'm hoping at least 30 or 40 more people jump in, so we'll give it a second. All right, folks. Well, welcome tonight, Wednesday, 6 o'clock. Thank you for being on time. This is Anthony Russomanno from Futureology, your college and career planning service program for CUSD. But before we really get into it, I would love to find out if anybody knows who is on my screen right now. If you can chat that in. This is the week that the NBA Finals starts, and I'm a big basketball fan. Anybody can chat in there if they know who that is. It is a man, Skylar. It's not just a man. If anybody follows basketball. Yeah, it's Steph Curry. Great, Megan. Thank you. It is Steph Curry. And you're like, well, why is Steph Curry here on this webinar? Well, he's not, but today on ESPN.com, there was an article out that was a really fantastic article, and it kind of ties into what we're going to talk about tonight. So I wanted to kind of draw your attention to it. It was called Rise Above It or Drown, How Elite NBA Athletes Handle Pressure. And it talks about stars such as this gentleman. If you don't know who he is, he's one of the best basketball players on the planet, Steph Curry, LeBron James. You probably heard of Michael Jordan, Jerry West, and how the stress manifests itself with these athletes during critical times in their lives. And it's a really great article. I really highly suggest you read it. Go to ESPN.com. But Steph talks about how he has butterflies in his stomach, and that's in turmoil, which for some of you, you might feel sometimes that way. I know before I even started tonight, I had butterflies in my stomach before I present sometimes. And stress and pressure can manifest itself in many different ways. And Michael Jordan talked about, and I'm going to read a quote from this article from him before we get into it. He said, if you have doubt or concern about a shot, and he was a basketball player, so he talks about a basketball shot, or feel the pressure of that shot, it's because you haven't practiced it enough. The only way to relieve that pressure is to build your fundamentals, practice them over and over, so when the game breaks down, you can handle anything that transpires. People didn't believe me when I told them I practiced harder than I played, but what it was true. That's where my comfort zone was created. By the time the game came, all I had to do was react to what my body was already accustomed to doing. It's a really powerful thing when you think about how you go through stress, how it affects you. Even these elite athletes kind of take it to another level. Kyrie Irving, another basketball player in the article, he talks about, I enjoy stress and pressure. He looks forward to it. So we're going to talk a lot about stress tonight. I know you talked about, well, Anthony, tell me about summer. What do I need to do in summer? We'll talk about, and we're going to tie that all in. But to backtrack a bit, again, my name is Anthony Russomanno. I work for the school district. We do a lot of these webinars, if you have attended some of them before, as well as in-person events to help students with college and career planning. Tonight, I'm going to take a little different spin because I do have a background in clinical psychology. I want to introduce some of that because I'm seeing a lot of things happening on the college admissions front and in academics, and I want to address those a bit and kind of give you some tools and tips and coping strategies as we talk about stress in general. My email's on the board, so you can write that down if you want. I am recording this, so if you missed something and want to rewatch it, it'll be on our website. I'm going to put that spot in the chat room, and we'll talk about a couple other resources throughout the night. So if you go to CUSD-Futureology.org and you go to this is our website where the webinar will be recorded and put up. So Carson, hello. Hopefully you can see me. and welcome. So again, I've been doing this a long time. I'm going to impart some of the knowledge I have in my background, as well as talk about a whole bunch of other things. So that's what tonight is. Again, the program in itself, we do a lot of workshops. We help students go to college, find a career. We do a whole bunch of things. So you can learn more about us at our website here. I'm not going to take a ton of time. We only have a limited amount of time. We have about an hour to take you through some of this content and then open it up for some questions at the end. Okay. So as we talk about, my goals and my objectives for tonight is to kind of talk about stress 101, some of the basics of that, what's happening around the nation with stress, talking about pressing pause and what that means and some coping, and then talk about summer planning, okay, and how that ties into college admissions and beyond and stuff like that. So again, housekeeping wise, you already started doing it. There's a spot to chat in there. You can also actually click a button to ask a question. So mark it as a question if you have one. I'll either answer it. I might tell you I'll get to it at a later time. I'll also open up a Q&A at the end. A few other things, I'll be sending you some, flyers along the way. You can just download them to your desktop if you want them. It'll have something to do with what I'm talking about tonight. I also do a couple different polls. So I'm going to start with one poll, and it's really simple. I just kind of want to know who are you, whether you're a parent or a student. And so if you can just quickly answer that so I know who my audience is tonight, that would be fantastic. All it is just clicking a button. There you go. Okay. More parents. It's a lot of typical with a lot of my webinars. A lot of the parents come. Parents, great. If you find it's useful, I would love for you to share it for your student to watch. Again, you only have so many times you can ask them, hey, watch this. So I guess pick the ones that you think are most applicable. This will help both you. But again, knowing that I have more parents here is really great. The other question I'm going to have is, I'm going to ask is basically, what is your grade level? And so if you can answer that, I kind of want to know, do I have more freshmen, sophomores? Where do I have those students? Or even younger? Lots of juniors, okay. We have a mixed bag, great. By the way, sometimes my video cam, I turn it off so you don't get distracted by my Italian nature, which is talking with my hands. Plus I'm standing up, so you might not get a good view of me, and then my hands fly around. So every now and then I'll go in and out. It doesn't mean your video's off. As long as you can hear me and listen to the content, that's the most important part. So again, we have a lot of freshmen, sophomores, and juniors mainly. Okay, fantastic. My seniors, well, I don't know if you're looking for a last-ditch effort, but hopefully this will still be beneficial for you. Okay, and so one of the reasons I do this, I get a lot of students asking for advice about how they should spend their summer. So if you're kind of coming to go, hey, Anthony, I kind of want to know how I should spend my summer, that's part of it. But a lot of times they want to know, how do I get an edge in getting into the college of my choice? This is not just that, talking about how you plan your summer out. I want to talk about stress and how to take a step back, as well as what's important in your summer planning. So I'm going to combine both of those, because there's a lot of pressure around admissions right now in school and life in general. So I want to kind of shed light on both subjects. So the first half will be about stress, and then the second half will be about summer planning. So, but just understand that the more stressed and anxious you are about this admissions process or college admissions process, the more mistakes you're going to make navigating it. So for my seniors that are coming up, this happens a lot for my seniors and senior parents as well, is they start getting stressed out right around the time to apply, and they start making some irrational decisions. I don't want you to fall prey to that. Because you're getting stressed, don't let it be your kind of application assistant. Because I'm stressed, I'm going to apply to 5 more schools just so I can get into one. Or I'm going to take the SAT the 9th time this fall as a senior. You don't want to be doing those and making those mistakes. You start acting very frantic. You start doing things you shouldn't be doing, or you heard somebody else did something. Well, they did community service. I'm going to add 10 more hours or 100 more hours in this next month because so-and-so did it. Those are bad decisions, and you're letting stress get the best of you. You don't want to be doing that. So this is part of the reason why I'm doing this session tonight, is because I see a lot of that. So for my freshmen and sophomore that are here, hopefully you don't fall prey to some of that. For my seniors, keep that in mind as we talk about it, okay? As I said, my background is in clinical psychology and counseling psychology as well. So again, I want to kind of cover that. In terms of how you spend your summer, and we'll hit more of this later in the second half, there's no correct right answer. There's no one thing. There's so many different options that student and parents can consider. So again, I just want to put that in perspective for you as we kind of talk about this. So what I really like to do is, if you can chat, let me know, are you feeling stressed right now? I mean, school's ending, so you should hopefully be feeling really good about it. But if you can kind of chat in there about if something's stressing you out, just type it in there if you want to, feel free. So name something that's stressing you out right now. Please chat that in the window. If you're not, then great. Summer's coming. Okay, good. Nobody's feeling stressed. Okay. Scott, okay. I saw your email today, Scott. I think Naomi answered your question earlier. Well, if you're not feeling stressed, well, then I guess we can move on. But it's pretty much a common feeling. It's okay to admit it. I know as parents, we feel it all the time. Kids, I'm sure a lot of high school students, you're counting it typically more frequently than a lot of us, because you got your academics, especially my juniors on the call, my seniors. You got a lot of studying to do, a lot of commitments. Some of you might have jobs. So it's pretty typical, okay? And it might feel impossible to manage that stress, but hopefully tonight you'll get some tips. We'll talk about it. But understand that it's really natural, okay? It might feel unnatural at times, but it's really your physiological response to changes in the environment. If back in the olden days, it's your fight or flight response when you were in danger. Now, the difference is we're typically not in a life-threatening situation, but our body can't tell the difference, so we feel this stress and it feels overwhelming. But I want you to understand that stress isn't necessarily a bad thing, even though it gets a bad rap, okay? As we talked about with those athletes at the start of this, for them, they like to be in that situation. Here I am again. They like to be feeling that pressure. It kind of motivates them. I get motivated. It helps me get off all the couch. I better do something today. I'm feeling stressed. I need to get something done. When you're feeling that way, it can add some good things to the process for you. So you need to understand that it's not necessarily negative in the sense. It could help your overall performance. Like I said, sometimes I get butterflies when I do a lot of presentations. That's a good thing. It gets me excited. I'm already amped up already, and that's part of the stress that's kind of inside. There is good stress and there's bad stress. So you need to understand some of the differences of the good stress and the bad stress. For the majority of students, for example, an SAT or ACT test score plays a significant role for them in the admissions process. So for them, it feels like it's bad stress. Like I have to focus on that in one test, but it's really natural to have that stress. But knowing that it's coming up hopefully motivates you, and it has an impact on your admissions that you're going to work at it. And it should motivate you to do something about it, okay? You don't just take the SAT unprepared unless you're happy with that. Lynetta, is it good for teachers? Yeah, this is good for teachers too. Sure, why not? You're stressed? Well, glad to have you. I'm stressed too, and that's why I'm doing it too, to kind of calm myself down. So Ryan, and you're stressed too about the SAT, ACT. I love how you guys are kind of already participating. That helps me a lot. But again, these things like the SAT or ACT, Ryan, it should motivate you. It can be good stress if it motivates the right way. But what you want to do is stay out of the idea of the anxiety and the distress, because then it can be too much. Okay, it's really a natural physical and mental reaction. For a lot of us, it's really mental to life's challenges. My I have a middle school son in middle school and a son in elementary school. My middle school son, really mentally, he's learning how to handle stress, and that's really tough. So again, a little stress isn't a bad thing, and I want you to make sure you understand that. And to kind of talk about some of when is it too much? When is stress too much? When do we look at it that way? And it can be what we call distress and affect us in so many ways. Our ability to concentrate, our mood. I know for my son, a lot of time is mood. You might feel fatigued. You might feel irritable. And these side effects are difficult to manage. So tonight we'll talk about some coping ways that you can do that. And again, it really does tie into college admissions and career and what we're talking about, because a lot of times the stress that I talk to students about and parents about is all around that and managing that process and stress. And it is an inside job. You have to learn to self-regulate yourself and knowing your mind and your emotions. And I get it, parents, I have kids myself. To kind of know what's going inside our children's minds is really difficult. But at the same time, too, we have to do a very good job of modeling ways we handle our own stress and anxiety. Because a lot of times we put it on them, or we put this pressure on them. Okay, so it's really important that we kind of consider that. So as we look at some of these reasons why students are getting stressed and some of those top causes, let's talk about what I call, I'll bring this back up. I had this at the start of the night. So there was Steph Curry. Here's some of the quotes they had in the article that I talked about. I forgot I added this in today because it was just so relevant. There's LeBron James. We call him the king in the NBA. And he just talked about how he let the pressure of other people get to him. But he said, he learned from that. And from learning from that, he's like, it's not going to happen again. Whether I win or lose, I'm not going to fail at anything again, because he's going to be mentally tough about that. Then there's Michael Jordan at the bottom here. And he talked about, for a lot of people, they just didn't believe in themselves, and that can happen. We call some of those things that Michael Jordan talked about, all this practice, muscle memory. And I've talked about this in some of my parent boot camps and other things that we do. For kids going through this college admission process, and parents as well, we've got to build a lot of things into muscle memory, whether it's prepping for prepping for your SAT or ACT, learning how to do that, learning how to get a poor grade on a practice SAT, so when it actually comes down to it, you won't get a bad score. But if you don't practice it and you don't take multiple practice SATs or ACTs, it's going to be hard for you to do extremely well on the test. If we don't practice failure, and parents, we can't always save our kids. We got to let them go through failure. They're going to be better equipped to handle that when they go to college, when they're without us, because they're going to have built it in muscle memory. We call that self-efficacy, if you've heard me say it before. Okay, so it's really important that we're considering these items as we talk about it. I'm going to talk a little bit about signs of stress, and then about some recent studies that have been out there. So again, I would love it if you could let me know, what signs of stress do you have? In the article, Steph Curry talks about his racing heart a lot of times. Do you get shaky hands? If you guys can chat in there, maybe when you're feeling stressed, maybe about an AP exam or a test you have, or the SAT, or some academic pressure, or your job, or whatever it may be, do you have a physical reaction? Do you have an emotional reaction? If you guys can kind of let me know where you're on it. For me, my heart races. I really don't, my hands don't shake too much, or my clenching fist. But for me, physically, I get racing heart. Sometimes I get headaches. Christy, hard to sleep. Yes, I get a lot of sleeplessness. I kind of, my wife says, why don't you go to bed already? And I'm up. Inability to focus, great. Emotionally, my son, he acts out a lot. He kind of takes it out on me. As a parent too, I get a little agitated myself. I raise my voice a bit. So there's a lot of things going on. What I want you to do, and we don't have to name everything that we do, is understand when you're feeling this way, okay? Understand when you're physically getting that way, and emotionally. I've been working on this with my son because he's been playing baseball this season, and he needs to understand when he kind of feels that way, to how to cope with that. And that's the hard part, and we'll talk about that in a second, okay? So as we're moving on, you're not the only one in this process, guys. And great, Lynetta, sure. Procrastination, sure. It might feel isolating at times for you because you feel like you're the only one going through that, but it's not. A lot of people are going through this. Stress affects more people, students. We've got a teacher on here. I'm a parent, and kids a lot. And through a lot of the studies that's been happening, I'm going to talk about some of the results of that. So we have an idea of what's happening, but we're seeing a lot of chronically stressed students. And the results aren't surprising nowadays with all the homework that's required for AP classes or sports practices. I know I live in San Clemente. There's always practice every day of the week for all these sports. That can drag on you. Extracurricular activities, music, and student government. The test prep, we just talked about it. And then plus all parent expectations about all this process of going to college. I mean, right now I feel like parents are, they're on the call because they want to go, Anthony, just tell me how to get my kid into a good college. That expectation and pressure is put on the kids. And I always tell them, if they want to go to college, they're going to go to college. It's never been easier to go to college than it is today, but we don't feel it that way because there's some things we can't control in the process, and that pressure kind of is put onto our students or on our kids. And so sometimes there's burnout with these kids. And so we have to keep that in mind as we go through this. And we're going to talk a little bit about it and about some of this pressure. A lot of that academic pressure, sure, it's warranted. Teachers are giving the homework and it's competitive to get into college, but a lot of it is not warranted. It's kind of the perspective that we have about it. The perspective of that we feel like they have to go to a top 10 school or a school that's ranked in US News and World Report to get a good education. And that's not simply true. We just we feed into the media frenzy that there is. And it has a lot of effects on our body and our mind, whether kids turn to drugs and alcohol or the anxiety levels. If you have anxiety over a long period of time, it becomes chronic, or your heart problems, anxiety, depression. Kids are going to college more than ever with depression. And colleges are complaining about it now. I hear from a lot of admissions officers. I hear a lot of deans talking about it. And kids are taking longer to graduate because of some of these issues. In the recent study, an NYU study, nearly 49% of all students reported feeling a great deal of stress on a daily basis, almost 50%. So we need to look at it now before we get to college. Parents, I'm telling you, now is the time to start thinking about it, for making sure we can cope, our kids can cope. My kid's on the call. How can you cope with it? Because when you hit college, your parents won't be there. You have to find ways to learn how to cope. Half in this study reported having 3 or more hours of homework per night. And 26% reported feeling depressed. That's not good news, folks. So what can we do about it? How do we handle it? How do we cope? And we'll talk about some coping strategies. I want to talk about screenagers. And that's kind of a term now for anybody born in the 2000s, which are my children. And the 3 biggest areas of stress for them: 1, which makes sense, academic performance, college admissions. Those are huge for them. And these school demands and the frustrations that go with it, yes, it can be a lot. Social media is another big one. So sometimes taking some breaks this summer, thinking about taking a break from social media, putting it down. Teens are exposed to a lot right now. And you hear so much about, different school shootings or uncertainty in the world, whatever it may be. The internet itself has really created a different teenager than when I was a child, parent when you were a child. And then the other thing that was high on the list for screenagers is just managing parent expectations. I know it happens for my children. Sometimes you take on too many activities because you want to please your parent. And we have to consider that. A lot of times the parent's like, well, you need to get into this college, so you're going to take every activity that's possible. And that's just the uneducated way of doing it, because that doesn't work anymore. That's not the best approach. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And for parents, I understand, you feel like there's one linear path to success and the good life, and it has to do with the college you get into. And that's not necessarily true. So again, you should probably watch some of the other events that we've done or workshops we've done about college admissions and how it really works. What's the most important thing? So when you go through this process, you're putting weight on the appropriate things. You're not putting weight on community service hours, because for a lot of kids that it means nothing. And for you, you're putting it in and trying to fit it in, and it shouldn't fit in your life. You don't have the time. So again, these are just some of the issues that we're talking about of the stress and state of the nation of everything. And then again, the other thing too parents do is they might spend a lot of money trying to get kids an advantage and, early on. And a lot of times it's in the wrong place, okay? So be careful. And we call a lot of this brand name-itis. It's like, I got to get my kid into this school. And we saw about that with that just recent scandal with USC and Yale and all those other schools out there of parents paying for their kids to get into these schools because they feel this pressure or this status pressure. That affects us. And then this, again, leads to mental health issues and a whole bunch of things. Other sources of stress for teens that might happen are just negative thoughts about themselves and changes in their body, that happens, or living environments, or, divorce, whatever you may, death of a loved one, chronic illness. There's so many things happening, and we just have to be more attuned to that. The same mechanism that turns on the stress response for us can also turn it off. We just need to decide that this is no longer a dangerous situation, and we can learn to cope with it. Okay. And again, as I mentioned earlier, parents, if we can model some of these techniques and coping strategies, it's going to be better for our kids. Okay. So that's really important. And you're going, Anthony, we're spending so much time on stress. Yes, we'll get to the summer planning and all that. And we'll talk about this. Is just so important because this college admissions process, I'm telling you, is so overwhelming for people, partly because they don't fully understand it, and the expectation and pressure they're putting around it, around this, some of the things that they can't even control, affects it so much. So don't fall into that, okay? Don't be the ones that force this pressure and this stress down. You want to be able to kind of handle that, okay? Because if it leads to chronic stress, and by the way, there's different. Acute stress is typically the most one that we see when you have a test or the SAT coming up, a big game. That's the acute stress. When it moves to chronic stress where it's nonstop, then you kind of get into trouble. And when you're dealing with chronic stress, like I said, it's going to affect you to succeed academically. It's going to affect and compromise your mental health functioning. You might have some risk behavior. And then there's the middle, which is episodic, where your life is really chaotic and you kind of have stress episodically. And you don't want that either. So again, we're going to talk about how we can handle that. Okay, but before we do that, a couple more points about some of the results of some of these studies. The American College of Health Association study, they did one with over 100,000 students, and 51% felt overwhelming anxiety. 46% they felt things were hopeless when serving kids in school. And and again, it's around school and academics, and for the kids, they're not feeling they have enough time left for relaxation or creativity because the demands are so high that they're feeling like the demands are at an adult level, that developmentally, why are we pushing all this pressure on their kids, not adults? And so keep that in mind. Is this appropriate for my child? Are we overdoing it for them? Is there enough time to do some of these other things that we need them to do? Okay. So as we talk about this, and we talk about, all the depression and anxiety that's happening surrounding that, this is why summer can be so valuable. You can practice your resiliency. You can learn some life and coping skills while you're not having the academic pressure. So summer is a great time, folks. And that's kind of why I wanted to combine the two and know that, hey, we have an opportunity here with summer. So when we talk about summer and we talk about the idea of pressing the pause button, okay, so you kind of see it on my slide here. Yes, I'm still here. And again, if you have some questions, I am going fast through it because an hour is usually never enough time. And I always have so much content to talk to you guys about. It's just, I hate keeping you on for 2 hours, even though I could probably keep you on for 3 hours. So I talk fast, and again, hence my hands move really fast. So when do we push the pause button, is really important. We need to be able to understand when we're feeling this distress or high anxiety moments, we might need to recenter ourselves, okay? So the first thing is, and I like to say, you need some R&R, and it's not the R&R that probably parents talk about, rest and relaxation. It is recognition, number one, is, are you finding yourself rushing from task to task? Or, are you always on 24/7? We need to understand is when we feel a certain way and we're feeling some of this stress, how or why should we press the pause button? A lot of times, just for productivity's sake, sometimes you need to step away from it. You need to pause in order to move forward. I know this happens to me quite a bit. And a lot of times, unfortunately, I don't pause. I just keep going. I just don't have time for a break, I say. Are you feeling the same way? So if you're saying things like that, I just don't have time to eat lunch, you might need to pause for your own sanity or for productivity reasons. The other thing you might need to do is you need to stop to get ahead, which sounds counterintuitive, but in order to do that, you got to say, what am I doing? Why am I doing these things exactly in this order? What do I need to do to kind of resume my progress? And sometimes you just need that break to recharge. So stopping completely all along to get ahead might be something you need. Here's some other things you might need. When you need, or when you're behind. Maybe you're behind in order, you need to say, well, yesterday was yesterday. For me to kind of continue going, I need to work on today's stuff. Or for me, lately, when you're not delivering your best. I mean, I'm going to admit it right here, is last week I did a webinar and it wasn't my best. And why wasn't it my best? Is because I was doing too many things. I needed to press the pause button. I wasn't prepared enough. I was doing too many things personally and professionally. I even joined a task force recently that I had to resign from, even though I wanted to be on it. It was great networking for me, but I just didn't have the time to give my current job the best and give that task force the best. So, for example, do you need all those AP courses you're taking? Do you need to take AP classes in the summer and do summer school all summer? I don't know. Are you not delivering your best in those AP classes because you have too many of them? If you're not, you're having trouble balancing that, you might need to drop some of those. Okay, so you have to make those decisions. Only you can. Only you know what you're going through. Parents and kids, you guys need to have a conversation together. Okay, so again, are you delivering? You're not delivering your best. How about when you need more time? You're just not finding enough time. So you might need to press pause. And, oh, I didn't have time to do that and prep my appointment or whatever you're doing, or work. I didn't have time to do that. Maybe you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. Like maybe you're working on something so trivial and that's not the most important thing you need to be doing. That happens to me a lot of time. I get lost and I'm like, why am I working on that? I need this to be done by Friday. I should just shuffle that, move that away. Again, maybe when you need to make an important decision. I have this a lot with seniors, like, well, where do I want to go to college? Like people just start making their list, not really thinking about it. I put a college list together, but a lot of times I ask them one question about, hey, well, why'd you pick UCLA on the list? Well, it's a good school. And they never really put enough thought into that. When you need to make an important decision, for example, like going to college, you better have known everything about that school and why you're going there more than just it's a good school. So when you need to make an important decision, as again, choosing college, you need to take the time and really think about that conscious choice. So pause about it. Take the time to do the research. A lot of times we go so fast at it. Now I'm going to add these 3 schools onto my list just because you want to get into more schools and you never really thought about it and consciously thought about it. Then you know you need to pause. Maybe when you're feeling under the weather, you're not feeling that great. You can only push yourself so far. So maybe taking a break for that, to rest, to sleep, even just to enjoy life with others. I know for my family, I always spend as much family time with them. I took this job because my kids are in the same district. My wife teaches in the same district. And I wanted to enjoy more time with them, being on some breaks with them. So I had spring break with them and Christmas break with them. So again, that was something I consciously made the choice to do. And I needed to press the pause button on some of the other professional work I was doing. You can't just rush family time or fun. You might need to pause it and just say, I need to get some of that back. Okay. And the last one here, you keep hitting the DDP button. Does anybody know the DDP button, what that is? It's actually a little picture on our slide right here next to the runner on the treadmill. It's called the Dig Deep button. It's that secret button that you push when you're really exhausted, tired, overwhelmed, and you just got to dig deep and really get through something. The problem is if you keep hitting it, meaning you're always hitting the dig deep button for yourself, you definitely need to pause. Okay? We can't always find the dig deep button. You have to kind of refresh yourself. You have to kind of regenerate that button. So make sure, again, these are ways to kind of know like, hey, when do I need that press the pause? These are just some of many. I don't have time to hit every single one, but understand that these are reasons to press the pause button and give yourself a chance at more productivity, okay? So I'm going to take a second, let that sink in, and we're going to move on to just some coping strategies, okay? You know, I mean, people say this, you know, they have, you know, hey, stop and smell the roses. That's like saying press the pause button. You know, there's all these cliches about that stuff. So, you know, you got to take the time to notice some of those ordinary moments. I know, you know, just spending time with the family, you realize some of those, what they are as a parent. Kids, it's harder. You're just going through life. But, you know, even just spending time with a good friend or doing something for yourself. So let's talk about some of these coping strategies. Okay. Again, I'm always checking on here. So the first one on this list, map it out. And what I mean by mapping it out is you might need to calendar a whole bunch of things out to make sure you're on track. When you don't do that and you kind of fly by the seat of your pants, you're bound for trouble. Things aren't going to happen on the same timeline you want. So just take, for example, the SAT or ACT. I know, Ryan, you were talking about it. Like, when is the registration deadline? When are you taking the test? Then backtracking and how many weeks you're going to need to get the score that you need. Mapping all those things out is going to help create less stress in your life, not more stress. Even though you're going to go, boy, my schedule is compacted, then you can look at it and say, well, maybe do I need to remove a few things? Which things are not important and which things are more important? And you can set goal and use that calendar. And I really recommend parents and kids calendaring together. So for my seniors that are on the call, you know, when's your SAT in that calendar? When are you creating your college list? When are you you're creating your preliminary college? When you're creating your final college list? When are you working on your essay? Those things should be counted out for college admissions. And if you don't have those and don't map those out, you're going to be more stressed. Okay. The other one, do something for yourself. We always have these responsibilities, and I know they're important for you, but your self-care is extremely important. So do you need to, you know, hey, I'm going to go get a massage, or I'm going to go do an activity or a hobby I enjoy. I'm going to go fishing. You know, maybe you like fishing. I don't fish, but for me, I like to play basketball. When am I going to get to the gym and go play basketball? Or my wife likes to read a book. She would love to go sit out in the sun and read a book for a day. Hey, do something for yourself. That's a great coping strategy when you're feeling that you're overly stressed, you're doing too much. Then take a step back, okay? It's not a small act. It's a great one to do something for yourself. A lot of times we don't do enough of that. Using your resources. Do you need to talk to someone? Maybe your advisor at school, or come see our futurology counselors if you're talking about planning for college and career and you want to map some things out and you want to make sure you're on the right timeline and you're not doing extra things you shouldn't. A lot of kids that come and see us when they're doing college and career planning, we find out they're overdoing it, or they're doing too many things, or actually they're taking the SAT and the ACT. Why are you doing both when colleges accept one? You don't need both. Well, you're doing too many things. Well, shoot, let me remove that off my plate. I'll feel a lot better. So again, using your support system, really, really important. Find what works for you. That's another one that you should keep in mind in terms of coping. So what works for you? Everybody experiences stress differently. Again, we talked about, you know, for me, my heart beats fast, you know, so for me, you know, maybe breathing or doing some, I like going into the sauna. It's really hot, but for me, that kind of relaxes me. It gives me a sweat. So what works for you? Everybody has something, different techniques. I always tend to find when my younger son in elementary school is doing his either projects or doing some crafts for fun, like coloring, coloring calms me down, as silly as that sounds. When I can color in the lines and control of what I color and pick the colors I want to use, I feel at peace. It's kind of weird. You might like to pet your dog or your cat, or have them sit on your lap, or go for a horse ride, or watch, you know, the ocean. Some people just like to watch the ocean. My older son, when he was younger, he used to watch the ocean and he would just be at peace. What works for you? Find that out. Face stress head on. That's really important too. We talked about it earlier that the athletes, Kyrie Irving, he loves it. Bring it on. I like that pressure. If you ignore things too long, actually they build up and it lingers. Especially, the biggest thing that I found in the college and career planning process that caused the most anxiety for kids is the SAT or ACT. I don't know if you've heard that as well. I've been teaching and tutoring that stuff for 20 plus years. It's the one that gives people the most fits and the most anxiety. Well, part of it is people make it linger for too long. For a lot of people, it should only be a 3-month process. You take a practice test on SAT and ACT, you determine which test score is your better one. Then you sign up to take the real one, and then you prep for that and take multiple practice tests along the way and knock it out within a 3-month window, and you're done with it. A lot of kids and some of these seniors on the call, I know you're going through it, you've been doing this for over a year now. When it lingers, it adds stress. So for my younger students, for example, face it head on. There's actually a window you should be in and taking it and being done with it and move on to the next things in the process. When you're doing too many things in the college admissions process, such as your SAT and ACT, creating your college list, writing your essays, and filling out applications all at once, that's why it's so stressful. That's why kids are struggling. That's why they make mistakes in the process. That's why they let irrational fear build in there and they make bad decisions in the process because they're doing too many things at once. Separate those. So again, face stress head on by looking at it. But if you map things out, you plan, you talk to and use your support resources, you're going to realize that, okay, I take it in bite-sized pieces and I'll be better. So for example, my seniors, rising seniors, you should start working on drafting your essays this summer. So when the fall hits, you don't have to be writing those when applications are due. All you do is, I just plug it into the application and the copy and paste and I submit, okay? Making stress your friend. You can normalize anxiety, like especially test anxiety. Make it your friend. You don't need to say I'm a bad test taker, but you talk about how you're going to rise to the challenge. Make it your friend, okay? Remove secondhand stress. Okay, and what I mean by that, it's if you've heard the term secondhand smoke, it's kind of the same process. If I hate smoke and it just bugs me like no other. I don't like being around smoke. And it can affect you. Just as smoke can affect you by nearing someone who smokes, so can stress. Just how parent peer pressure or pressure the kids give to you parents, it all is affected. If we are hanging around people that are more stressed and that are causing things, or they're very competitive in a cutthroat process of straight A's around them, it's going to make it a little more stressful environment, or negativity and uncertainty around that. Is we don't want to be around that because it's going to help encourage that stress and that chaotic behavior. So if you see that around you, remove that. Remove yourself from a situation that's building stress. As people are talking about going to Stanford and Princeton, which have 5% acceptance rate, and that's not even possible, get out of that conversation, even though they probably won't even have a chance of getting in there, and they're still talking about it. It's just going to build and fester. Okay, remove that. Other things, decrease your negative self-talk. You have to correct these self-beliefs. You've got to have more healthy talking. I talk to my son about this all the time. Say, his name is Anthony too. Anthony, you can do it. Tell yourself you can do it. Don't say you're bad at test taking or you're not a good pitcher. Or say, I can do this. I can handle this. This is just one hiccup. Or if something you're not good at, say, I'm not good at it yet. I just got to practice it. So you got to use you statements. You can do it. Coach yourself on it. Hey, Anthony, I got this. No problem. I also like to externalize the anxiety monster. Make him your friend. Give him a name, whether you call him, worry beast, whether you call him, there's an anxiety monster right on the screen right now. I gave you a picture of him. Don't let him beat you. Talk to him like, hey, you're not going to get me today. If you want to call him buddy or, negative Nelly, whatever you want. Okay. And you just got to also, the last thing is learn to feel good about doing a competent or good enough job than demanding perfection from yourself. That's a hard thing. That is going to be helpful, and it's a good coping strategy, because if you're looking for perfection, oh, I'm going to take the SAT again for my 9th time because I'm at a 34 and I can, or I'm going to get an ACT score of 36. Things can be good enough. They don't have to be perfect in this process. Okay. All right. I know that was fast. Here's some other stress reducers, as Charlie Brown and Snoopy are there. What I'll talk about is just focus on parts that you can control. This admissions process is something people are trying to get a handle on, but you can't. The UC system is very competitive, so that's what it is. Don't get mad at it. Don't be like, well, I'm a 4.3 and I'm not going to get into UCLA. Well, so what? There's a lot of great colleges out there. There's just so many valedictorians applying there, and everybody with a 4.5 and their grandma are applying to UCLA. That's just how it is. You can't control it. If you try to control something you can't control, that's where stress builds up. Okay, so watch out for that. Another one, find some joy in the things you do. I know a lot of you watch probably Marie Kondo and Your House and Finding Joy. Just find that joy. Take some risks. Socialize and communicate. A lot of times, just even through human connection, I'm a psych guy, that just those relationships help our biological response to stress. It stimulates, we won't talk about the hormones that it releases and all these things it does, but it can help us feel good and less isolated. It helps ground you. So socializing sometimes can be a great thing, just as laughing can do that as well, or getting out in nature and feeling that. Okay. So again, these are some stress reducers. Okay. All right. Other ways to manage stress, and then I'm going to move on to the summer thing. Okay, and I know I'm going fast, but hopefully you're staying with me. Okay, we talk about relaxation and relaxation techniques. A lot of people, I know my wife likes yoga a lot. You can do aromatherapy, deep breathing. Some people try tapping. There's mindfulness apps that you can listen to. I like to exercise. I do have a bad back now, so I don't get to do that. So I actually probably feeling a little bit more stressful now. But just get moving and eating well. That usually tends to make me feel better. Setting goals, and just as I talked about earlier, unplugging, putting your phone away, social media, TV away, getting out in nature. That's really important for you to do. I'm sure you can look up a whole bunch of stuff. You have friends that talk about it. About managing stress. Ask what other people are doing, but definitely those are some ways you can manage stress. Okay, and we're going to move on now. And obviously for me and my kids, sleep. Make sure you get sleep. That's really huge. Okay, all right. Deep breath. Whew. We got through stress. That's a quick. We call that a 101 of stress. Really fast. Now we're going to talk about summer planning, okay? And this is tied into the stress because I want you to know the summer is coming up, a great opportunity for you to do a lot of things, okay? Again, there's no right or wrong way to spend your summer, okay? A lot of people think, well, shoot, I have to do this in my summer. No, it's not necessarily you have to do that particular thing in the summer, but I want to go to this school, so I have to do this. It doesn't work that way, okay? So we're going to talk about some summer planning myths. And myth number one is your summer must be impressive, okay? There's nothing wrong with creating your own summer experience. It doesn't have to be something you think the colleges want to see, okay? Whether you're backpacking 2 weeks with your friends or you're calling and around to do some job shadowing, you can do a whole bunch of things. People think I need to go to the camp at Harvard because it's the robotics camp and I'm into robotics and that's what I must do that. And it has to be that impressive. And that's not really true. What's important is that you're pursuing activities that you're generally interested in, that you enjoy doing, and it's a great way to learn, okay? Don't be doing something because you think somebody's watching you, or you're doing something because the college, you think you have to do that because the college wants you to do that. That's the wrong way to even not just the summer, take the college admissions process. That's why people end up doing community service, not because they're interested in community service, but they think they have to do that. That's a bad way to do it. If you're a community service kid and that's your thing, then so be it. But if you're not and you're doing it just to do it because you think somebody's watching, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons, okay? So don't worry about what looks good. Again, find out what you enjoy and kind of follow that path. And again, you don't really control who's reading. I know a lot of readers, admissions readers and admissions reps and people who've been there before. You don't know what they find impressive. Like for me, what would be impressive is somebody who worked all summer and he worked at a certain job and he did customer service. That would be impressive to me. For somebody else, it might be, taking a class at a community college outside the typical class. Maybe he's doing painting or something. So it's going to be different for everybody. So again, just because you want to go to a competitive college doesn't mean that you need to have to take a specific thing. Nothing's going to guarantee you admission to that university, especially those that have, under 10% admissions rate. There are no shortcuts for those types of schools. And there's nothing that's going to magically ensure that you get into a school. Most of those kids applying to those schools anyway are doing things outside of, that particular summer experience that you think they're doing, okay? So again, simply put, build a great summer around something that you really want to do. I mean, you could be bagging groceries. You can be taking an online course or two. You could go and do some volunteering around that, or maybe you're a tutor or something. My son, he's only in elementary school. He's already talking about this, and I'm like, I better feed his fire for this, but he wants to start a dog walking business because he likes dogs and he wants to be a veterinarian maybe. That's might not seem impressive, but that would be impressive to me, that you started a dog walking business and he wants to buy his own dog because he wants a dog. We don't have one. And that's impressive. That's what he worked towards. And that was his summer. And that's all he did in the summer. That would be impressive to me. Now, what would be impressive, the other thing is if I would agree to have the dog. So I don't know, but that's the other part he has to get past. We'll see how that goes. But again, you can do so many things. You can read as many books as you want this summer. That would be impressive. You can, my son and I started umpiring Little League. He loves it. And if he were to do that all summer, that would be that would be impressive to me. Got a part-time job, worked at a summer camp. There's so many things you can do. Do things you've never done before. That would be impressive. Maybe you're learning to skydive or take karate or sign language. There's so many things you can do that can be impressive. So get it out of the mindset that you have to do something specific to a particular school, okay? Myth number 2, you need to spend a lot of money. That's not true either. Some people don't have the means to spend to go to, I'm going to go to Nicaragua this summer and build some houses or something. You might not have the funds to get out there. You could do something locally. You don't have to do something expensive. You don't have to break the bank, okay? Some things that I tell a lot of students, like, well, I can't go anywhere. Well, shoot, if you're into soccer, I'm a soccer guy. So I tell kids, well, help some kids, local kids at the YMCA or the Boys and Girls Club and hold little soccer workouts for them if soccer's your thing. Some of my little neighbors, they like to do little bake sales or whatever. Well, maybe that's your thing. You like baking. Do something like that. You can, hey, for college stuff, visit a bunch of colleges. There's so many in the 30-mile radius around here that you can learn a lot about. Big school, small school, private school, large classes, small classes, all those things. You can get a lot out of that, especially my seniors. Do that this summer. That wouldn't cost you a lot of money. Just driving around and touring Chapman, UCLA, USD, Laverne, Redlands, whatever you want. You can find a whole bunch of schools out that way. So again, you can do something. My wife's running a marathon this summer. That's pretty impressive, and it doesn't cost her that much money. Training wise, she just has to go to the place, run the race, and then hopefully come home. So again, another myth that's not really true. You can't have downtime. Some people think, well, I can't have any fun this summer. I need to be doing stuff because I got to get into this really good college. Not true. Okay. That's a big myth as well. You need to have, as we talked about, you need to press pause at some points in time. Doesn't mean totally shut down, but pressing pause to get ahead, stopping some things to get ahead. Summer's a great time. Okay. You need to have some fun. Again, depending on how stressful you might need to have a lot of fun. You have permission from me and from the colleges to enjoy yourself. Okay. You don't have to be as rushed and as busy. As I talked about, again, check yourself, do an inventory on yourself. Are you feeling rushed? Are you feeling like you need more time? Do you need to have a full-time job? I don't know. Maybe it's just too much for you. Maybe you just part-time job, or maybe no job and you're going to do something else. Whatever it may be, you need to have some of that downtime. This PDF is a PDF file that we use in business, or we kind of share files or something like that. That I usually call playtime, downtime, and family time. You need to have all of those. That's the downtime you need, is what I'm going to say it again. Playtime, downtime, and family time. You need to make sure you're doing that, especially in the summer, okay? I'm going to send you a couple handouts. One is a summer planning flowchart for my friends at CollegeWise. They made a really great flowchart, and I'll talk about that. That'll be coming in a second. But I'm going to first send you a 10th grade checklist. Here it comes for my 10th graders. You'll be able to download it. Now, it might slow your computer down and you might get disconnected from me. I don't know. So just hit refresh. I'm going to also send a 11th grader checklist. Again, you can watch this back and download those. And these are also on our website in our resource library. So if you didn't get to download it, you can always go to our resource library for these two checklists. We have checklists for everybody, okay, for all grade levels. So if your grade level is not here, go to our resource library. I only downloaded a couple. The other thing I want to send out to you is, I'll send you along the way, so you're going to get these files being shared, is 50 ways to spend your summer. So it's another good handout of things you can do this summer. So the questions you need to ask as we talk about summer, okay, so as we're talking about it, is I want you to think about and really consider, as you're planning, how much time do you have this summer to devote to a particular activity? So as you're thinking about planning, I'm going to send you that flow chart right now so you can download that. So first one, how much time do you have to devote to a particular activity? Do you have to balance a job? Do you have sports going on, vacation, family responsibilities, any of those things? So you need to figure out first how much free time you're going to have and what point in the summer you'll be available, okay? And again, for me, family comes first, so that you got to maybe, depending on how your priorities are stacked, you need to determine school, family responsibilities. What do you, maybe you have to make up a class in the summer, so that might be top priority. And then after that, what is the free time you have? So that's, as you plan the summer, these are things you need to think about, okay? The second one, do you want to earn or spend money, or both? Okay, some people go, well, I'd rather spend it. I'm going to go on a trip or a vacation. If you're in good position to spend money on a summer program too, maybe you want to go somewhere. You might want to discuss this as a family. Okay, what are the finances? What is it going to cost? Why are you doing this? Also, there are some programs that cost money, but they have scholarships if you can't necessarily afford it. So you have to do the research. So don't think, oh, well, this has a scholarship, or I can't do this. Check in that. That's required some research, okay? So that's really important. So again, do you want to earn money, spend money, or both? What do you hope to gain from your summer experience, okay? Do you have any goals? Maybe you want to learn a new language. Great, fantastic. Maybe you want to build a certain skill. I'm a huge, big believer on employability and life skills. Not enough kids are graduating college with those, and so they're finding themselves without jobs. By having even an internship or a job or doing something or creating your own summer activity where you gain some experience of some sort. Maybe even if you did a lemonade stand, you're doing customer service. So you can build some skills over the summer. So what do you want to gain? Goals, projects you want to complete. Maybe you have a project. I know I have a project. I know one summer I had built a shelving in my house for books for my wife and stuff. So that was one of my summer projects. I learned a lot. A friend helped me do it, and it was fantastic. So what do you hope to gain? Question 4, is there always something you wanted to learn more about? Okay, is that something that you can think about? That's always a good question. Maybe it's a skill you have, but you want to improve. I don't know. Maybe it's a sports skill. Maybe it's something musical instrument you want to learn about. playing the guitar. I always wanted to do that, never did that. Maybe you need to be more academically curious. This is what colleges really look for. Don't just take stuff inside of school. Do stuff outside of school. Maybe there's a class at Saddleback. There are some summer programs that we have through the district, and our CCA program, College and Career Advantage, where you could do coding or EMT classes, Photoshop, different things like that. So you can do those technical skills at Saddleback as well. So check those out. If you don't know yet, the other thing you can do this summer, and we do workshops on this all the time. We have some coming up in June after school gets out, our Eureka Career Workshops. Come do some self-assessments with us. We start kids off, and you can learn about maybe what you want to do later, which might help you figure out some things you can do this summer. So we have some coming up in June. Check our website just where you register for this. So if you're 9th and 10th graders this year, we have one on June 11th or so, and then we have one for 11th graders as well. I would suggest doing something like that. Question 5. We talked about these self-assessments going on. Is there anything you need to do to prepare for the upcoming school year? I know, Ryan, you said you were doing, you're taking the SAT or ACT. So in Ryan's case, you have something for the upcoming school. You want to get that out and knock that out. So you definitely want to get that out of the way. Check any other, do you need some summer school? You need credits or anything like that? One thing, there's some things in my mind that you need to do this summer. Check some colleges out. You can go on a little tour, as I mentioned. If you go on a vacation, take a visit to a local school. Just get in the habit of seeing what's out there and what you like or don't like. Journal some things. What do you like about your particular schools, or what a big school's like, what a sports school is like? Really important you do that. The SAT or ACT, as I mentioned, for my sophomores that are going to be juniors next year, you should actually be thinking about doing your testing this summer. So you're not doing it while you're in school, which creates additional stress, because tonight's about stress. If you can knock that out this summer and take it in that couple months chunk and be done with it while you don't have your school classes, you'll be so far ahead of the game. You don't want to be a senior, or you're finishing junior year and taking testing. You put too much weight onto it. It should be done much earlier than that and knock it out of the way so you can focus on the other parts of the applications. If you're my seniors, going to be seniors, you should be working on essays this summer. So are there things you could be doing in the college planning process that you could be knocking out this summer? I think drafting some college essays, taking a look at some of the applications, what they look like, putting your activity list together. So when school hits back in the fall, you're not stressed out putting it all together. It's already done, and then you just apply and click submit. It's a lot easier. So I highly suggest some of those. Take a look at our checklist. Come to our workshops and events so you're already prepped for those. Again, we won't leave you hanging. We have workshops for those. But again, you can get way ahead as opposed to come in the fall and they go, Anthony, I'm so stressed. Well, what did you do this summer? Well, nothing. I did a camp over here, and that's all I did. Well, you maybe missed some big things that would have, I guess, alleviated some of that stress. Okay. We talked about the other thing when you're talking about testing, and this is, and I'm going to bring it up real quickly, a minute on this, is if you are doing SAT or ACT testing, it's, and I had a parent email me today about it. You have to be realistic about this. If you're really going to get a score that puts you in the range of a top school, you really need to define that ahead of time. Don't just think it's going to automatically happen. It takes work. If you want to go up 200 to 300 points on the SAT, it's going to take you all summer. But if that's your goal, then you should be motivated, because the stress should motivate you to do that. Okay? So define that goal score and choose your timeline. Again, summer would be great. And then take one of the summer exams. There's one in August for the SAT, and then right at the start of September, right before school gets going, for the ACT. Okay? And then the next question, do you want to spend time on a college campus? Because that's something maybe you want to do. Okay? So if you do, take a look at what some of those programs are. Where do you want to go? What kind of programs do you want to take? Maybe there's a school you're interested in applying to or learning more about. Maybe they have a residential or commuter summer program. Then check it out if you do. Okay. And then the last one is Do you want to stay at home and take part in a program during the day, or you prefer to spend time away from home? Again, another big thing. How far away is you're comfortable going, or for the parents letting you go? What's it going to cost as well? So these are just some of the questions as you're planning out your summer. And I just sent you 2 documents, 50 Ways to Spend Your Summer, which is a really great document, and the one on the summer planning flowchart. So hopefully you guys can take a peek at those and take these 7 questions that I kind of laid out for you as the again, here's the summer planning flowchart of what it looks like, and take those documents and start having the conversation. Parents and kids, or kids, start really thinking about it. And what I'm going to say in kind of my overall kind of grand perspective is, first of all, start local. What's happening locally? Is there anything you can do that might interest you and pique your interest locally here? So take a look around, do some research on the internet, talk to some people, talk to some teachers. Find out what's going on. Number 2, let interest be your guide. I said this earlier. If you're doing something because somebody told you and you think you need to do that, you're probably doing it for the wrong reason. But if you're following your interest and what you're passionate about or what you like, you're going to have more fun. You'll be less stressed and more motivated, and you'll have a better experience. Do your research for sure. You have to, maybe it's going to cost some money. Maybe you can get a scholarship. Maybe you need to know, maybe there's prerequisites, applications, or anything like that. Do your research. That's really important. And then again, look at the 50 ways. You'll be surprised at all the things you can do in the summer that you didn't think would be beneficial to the college and career planning process. If it's developing you, which is the most important thing in the process, it's a good thing. Whether it's developing you because you're taking a class, whether it's because you're working a job, you're finding more about yourself, is going to be helpful in planning, the college planning process. And when you come see us, help for us to help you. Because if you know more about yourself and what you want, we can help you better. That's probably the biggest mistake a lot of kids make and families make when they come in to see my counselors and I for appointments. They have no clue. Well, what do you want to major? What do you want to say? I don't know. Well, what do you want? What kind of college experience do you want? Do you want by the mountains? Do you want by the beach? Do you want a big school, small school? Do you want internship? I don't know. Well, that doesn't help us because you're not figuring out what you want. Okay. Don't let the colleges guide you. Control what you control, which is what you want to do. And that is a better way to go through the process. Okay. So I'm going to kind of start wrapping it up with a couple activity takeaways. If you've heard me before, I talk a lot about this stuff, and I get this question a lot, is what looks better, Anthony? Do I do, something community service, leadership? Again, I'm going to say colleges really don't differentiate between different activities. Whether you were on the football team or you played the tuba, it doesn't matter. If you're a black belt in karate and it's not done at the school, it doesn't matter. Where are you committed? Where are you developing yourself? It's all about quality over quantity, not doing more. It's doing less and being focused and ultimately making an impact. You don't necessarily have to be a leader, the president of the group, to make an impact. Okay, so some of these activity takeaways, you've heard me say some of these before. If you haven't, check some of our other videos out. Invest in NTAs, which are non-teen activities, and those are something out of the ordinary. And sometimes those things you're going to be doing over the summer. It's not necessarily, well, I was part of, I did student government. Those NTAs are different things. Maybe you did, you started a nonprofit, or you worked for a consulting firm and you helped them with some project or something. Or you're doing something, some other ideas, you're doing some research with a professor because that really interests you. I don't know. But those would be something like that. And taking the initiative to do that. Okay? All right. Whew. Parents, this is the last piece for you, and then I'm going to open it up to some final thoughts and questions. So parents, really quickly, these are some do's and don'ts. So students, hopefully I'm helping you out, but help them create balance. Don't add more things to their plate. So again, parents do this all the time. Yeah, now you need to take the ACT because you didn't do well on the SAT. When you start flip-flopping exams, that's not balance. That's just adding more stress, okay? Help them find those stress-free zones to decompress. You might know it before they know it. Maybe they're really exercise or the music with their headphones on or something. Things you can explore together, like careers or interests. Help them do that. Move at their pace. Sometimes you want to move faster, but they can't. Own up to different things. My son put a dent in the wall the other day with a water bottle because he was in a bad mood and it flew out of it. Well, he wasn't really happy and he was crying and all that. Well, I owned up to the time that my brother and I were fighting and we wrestled, and I threw him into the wall, or he threw me into the wall, and I had a big mark of my butt in the wall, and I had to put a poster over it to cover. Like, I owned up to some things, mistakes I made. It's okay to do that. That's going to help them understand that it's okay. So again, those are just some things you can do to help. And don't lose all perspective. It's not all about getting into a particular college. If it is, then it's going to be, everything is going to be failure then if he doesn't get into UCLA. So don't lose all perspective, because that's going to take over and make it more stressful of a process. So again, treat it where that you're happy wherever he's going to go because he's following his interests. Ignoring these, trying to fix weaknesses. If you ignore their strengths and just try to fix those weaknesses, everybody's not good at everything. That really sets things up poorly, because then you're trying to fix them, and those weaknesses are hard to overcome. So again, don't do that. So those are just a couple points. Again, the slides will be available on the website as well. I'm not going to go through all of it because we're kind of running out of time. But again, for me, don't overparent. A lot of times I try to overparent. And I got to take a step back and, and not even take over the process for my son. Here, I'll help you with this project. Let them take it over, because it should be their process in college and career planning. So final thoughts, again, for this whole process, college and career planning, which includes summer planning, even managing their stress, make sure it's fulfilling your goals and your needs of your students. HIP, be a high impact player inside and outside the classroom, not just inside the classroom. And impact could be a lot of different things. It doesn't mean you have to have the best grades. Impact could mean that you participate a lot. The teachers love to have you in class, even if you're a B student or a C student. Effort is the great equalizer. Let them be a kid, that's BAK, and find something that they love to learn. Kids, find something you love to learn and learn more about it. And that'll help you in this process. So with that said, again, Futureology is your partner in this whole process. I'm going to open it up to questions. You can email me questions after the fact, personally, if you have a personal question, but I'll take some questions in the chat area. Okay, so first question, Ryan, I downloaded the SAT Prep test. Where do we sign up for the August and September test? The actual test, Ryan, is College Board, and the ACT is ACT. You sign up for the actual test there. The downloaded test is a practice test. Ryan, if you're going to be a senior, don't do both exams for real. You should only sign up for the actual either SAT or actual ACT. The practice test you have to score on your own, and you'll sign up on College Board or ACT. Yeah, I can set that up. But Scott, again, a lot of those documents you'll find on our resource library. So if you're not familiar with our resource library, I suggest you get familiar, because that's where a lot of our, if you're looking for checklists and stuff. So I'm going to share the checklist again. Now, I want to make sure that you guys heard me too. This, again, is about this stress and about I want to make sure I don't get questions and, hey, Anthony, how do I get into Stanford now? Like, that's not what this point of this session was tonight. It's for you to take a step back and say, how am I managing this process? How am I developing muscle memory to cope with the stress that I'm dealing with? And how do I look at this whole process and look at it from a better perspective? Really important, because I'm telling you, if I get to you and you're really stressed out, then maybe you didn't hear the message. The process is manageable. You take it in bite-sized pieces. Download those checklists. Look at the things you need to be doing throughout the year. And if you take them in bite-sized pieces, they'll be good. And this summer, especially for my rising juniors, you could probably knock out the SAT or the ACT now. For my rising seniors, you can knock out drafting your essays. We have a bunch of workshops on brainstorming. Knock some of those things out. So when it's October, you're not doing testing, essays, and applications all at once. You're going to freak out, I'm telling you. Other questions? I probably just stressed you out so much that now I made your anxiety higher. You have no questions, and you're dealing with higher heart rates. You're dealing sweaty palms and some of that. Hopefully not. And there was a lot more topic to cover, but again, you know, I try to keep it to an hour and 15 minutes tops so you guys can get back to your life and just get some bits and pieces. There are more webinars you can watch to get more information on specific topics of college planning, whether it be the essays, whether it be testing, whether it be athletic recruiting. We have those on our webinar locker. I put that at the start. I put that website, which is CUSD-Futureology.org/locker. And I'll put this one up again, probably tomorrow. So if you have no other questions, thank you for your time. Again, press pause when you need that pause. Well, great, Alex. Take that time to press that pause button. Again, don't press the dig deep button every day, every week. Try to lessen the chaos and stress around this process for you by using your resources, mapping things out, all the things that we talked about. I know they were quick. So if you need to listen again, watch this back another time. Download some of the slides. You can do some research on some of the things I talked about. Answer those questions about this summer, about what you want to do and get out of it. That's going to be really important. And just remember, this is about you. And that's what you can control. You can't control who's going to say yes and accept you. You can just do the things that you want to do. Again. So thank you. Thank you. You're welcome, Alex. Scott, no problem. Now my butterflies are gone. I've finished presenting, but the butterflies, again, you can tell that I talk a little faster and louder when I'm going. It's because I have those butterflies. The stress is a good stress because it gets me excited. It keeps me in that like excited state and energized to do these things. And I really enjoy it. So again, that's a good stress. They call that your stress. All right, folks, I'm going to click everybody out. Enjoy the evening.